Hello, my PowHERHouses. Welcome to another episode of Becoming PowHERHouse. And I am so excited for you to hear our badass guest that we have on the show today, Dr. Brianna Rhue, who earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Arizona before earning her doctorate of optometry at Nova Southwestern University. And she completed her residency at the Boston Palmer Eye Institute of Miami and is the owner of West Broward Eye Care in South Florida. Dr. Rhue is also so passionate about healthcare technology, myopia management, specialty contact lens fits, and practice management. She enjoys sharing her love for technology and myopia management through speaking engagements to help other optometrists understand business, technology, and new areas of care to help all the parties involved. She's also the co-founder of Dr. Contact Lens, outside of the office when she isn't crushing it, growing a massive tech startup and running her private practice. She enjoys spending time with her husband, her two sons, and staying active by playing tennis or sitting on her head in yoga, as well as traveling. So please tune in and enjoy my interview with Brianna. Hello, my PowHERHouses. So here we are. I have Dr. Brianna Rhue, and as you all know from my explanation of her bio, I am just stoked, Brianna, to have you here and have you share your story with us. And so, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Nicole.
Yeah. So I would just love to hear from you. Of course, I've read the things that you have posted in your story, and I've listened to a couple of other podcasts that you've been on, but I would just love to hear how you got started because, getting into private practice, that's kind of like a normal journey for a lot of doctors and maybe something that they envision themselves doing. But what is not so ordinary is also playing in the tech space and having this incredible tech startup that is like a whole new animal. And so I just want to hear your story and how.
Yeah, I love how you kind of framed that question too, because you went to college, then went to optometry school. I always wanted to be a doctor as long as I can remember. I was always really drawn to eye care because I was that kiddo that needed glasses very early on. And my optometrist, changed my life by getting contacts in third grade. And so I just kind of moved my way up the chain from patient to working in that practice to then going into optometry school and then joining a private practice and wanting to buy into that practice. So I just became the full owner. So we're now in the second generation of this practice of July 2023. But getting into the tech space there was an issue in our practices. So my best friend, Gentiza, and I, we were just constantly talking about, look, how are we going to really propel our practices forward? Like we are just getting squashed by the industry, just with vertical integration and what was really coming down, right? We all had to get electronic medical records in 2011, 2012. You had to get a website and you just had to become more of a business owner than essentially an optometrist. And we both fell in love with the business side of medicine and realized we're very weak in that for multiple reasons. We went to optometry schools to be great technicians, not really run the business. And growing up in my family where they owned a business for manufacturing furniture, all that kind of pawned off on me. So 2015 comes along. Jen's in LA, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and she called me and said, hey, you want to build an app where our patients can order their contacts from us? Because we were just getting, again, squashed by online retailers. And what patients don't understand when you come into a practice, right? Yes, we get to see you and we get to take care of your eyes, but it allows us to invest in our patients and invest in you as a patient is you buying products and services from us, right? So when you come in and say, this is the best eye exam you've ever had, and then ask for a copy of your prescription, it hurts because where did that go wrong, right? And so optometry lives in this special field where you get to sell essentially what you're prescribing to the patient for the best of their vision. So all these patients were coming in, then walking out, and we were like, there has to be a better way. So we thought we were building a website like for a year. Nicole, I thought we were building a website. I had no idea we were building a tech company, just dumping like so much money into the build. And finally, my CTO got somehow it to click in my head. He's like, look, this is never done. Like what you are building, you are a tech company that happens to sell to doctors and to patients. I was like, oh my God. And it like finally clicked. So here we are in this tech space with multiple integrations and understanding like what a tech stack is and coding and all of it. Like Dr. Contact Lens was built on a whiteboard that's like this big, you know, in my office.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my adventure into tech. And here we are.
So great. I just accidentally built like one of the fastest growing tech companies in the US, you know, no big deal. Way to be super humble, you know. But it's true, like, and it's so cool because that is a problem. And I think it's an issue in medicine overall nowadays, how everything continues to get more and more crunched, but to see a huge problem and come up with a solution. And now not just for you in your practice, but for all optometrists, right? That now have access to a solution to help them keep some money in house, which ultimately allows them to provide better service to all of their patients, right? And I think too, sometimes that's what people don't understand, or even myself as being a patient until actually hearing you for the first time, it clicked on, and I was like, oh shit, like I didn't even realize that, right? In terms of that being part of your core revenue stream. So I just love it. I love the innovation and how you really got there. And what I think is super interesting too is that you started this business with your best friend, which is a gamble. If not from just starting a business, like, yeah, that's hard, whatever, but deciding thoughtfully to go into business with your best friend, which to me, and you know, and that risk is like, oh my gosh, like what if, right? What if this doesn't work out well? What if something happens? And I even put myself in those shoes a bit ago when my best friend and I actually were starting about talking a bit about a business. You know, it was kind of funny. We went on a vacation to relax and unplug, and we came up with this like whole business plan the entire time.
Of course you did.
You know, of course you did. Because we didn't have internet for most of the time, and we were like, oh, anytime, what can we innovate? What can we do? You know, we came up with this whole thing. And so on the drive home, we were talking through like, okay, so if this doesn't work out, we're okay, right? Like what, you know, we literally played out like every scenario. So we still loved each other afterwards, because that is like a super scary thing. And so I would just love to hear from you truly, like how, because you're still partners. I know you still have a great relationship based on some of our previous conversations. So I would love for you to share with the listeners like wins, right? Like what went right? Yeah. What went right in your doing this and in your success? Because sadly, I have seen so many devastating divorces when it comes to partnerships. So I would love for you to share how you guys have gone about that and actually even dealing with, if you're comfortable sharing, like how have you dealt with the things that were disagreements? Because of course, nothing's perfect, right?
Yeah. And I was going to kind of start off on that foot where it's been great. It's been bumpy. It's been the highs and the lows, right? And what you can't share in entrepreneurship, a lot of the times it's very lonely, right? Because you can't put on your team what's going wrong, right? And we've done so many times along the way, we were so like celebratory that something was coming, and then it just like totally fell apart, and we were just all so deflated. And so it's really navigating just like that even keel of like, all right, we don't celebrate anything now until like the money is in the bank, or like the deal is signed, or it's started, or we've broken ground on something, because it's just been that's way too emotional. We've done things where, like, you know, we were talking about the book Traction, bringing in coaches for ourselves to making sure we were on the right path together. The other thing is really one person really has to take the lead, because you both can't be in that seat. So one person unfortunately does have to step back, but that's, I think, where traction came in was we're both really the visionary who's going to be the integrator. What she's great at, I hate doing. What I'm good at, she hates doing. And so we really leaned in to both of our strengths. And then recently it's just kind of celebrating those because it's such a long road. And like, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars, just stolen from us. And for us to pick ourselves up to continue to move forward, it is leaning on one another. So yeah, one of our coaches, it's funny, what's gotten our company this far is the little beliefs. So like we share, Jen is like, I swear she's an alien, from another planet, just on this planet, but she's really holistic and she sees the universe, like puts you on the right path through like angel numbers. So like 111 and 222 and 8s like mean something. And so it's like license plates, like we'll share license plates where it says like DCL, like go, like little things where you just have to figure out how to keep believing. And we've been able to do that for each other. And then when one person's down, the other person's up. When that person's down, the other person's up. And it's that roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's been a journey, and honoring the journey, not the destination, as much as we want that destination to happen. So just leaning into that as much as you can and honoring some days you're going to be your best. Some days they're going to be the best. And that's just what a partnership is. So I think you see a lot of the times, like there's no way we would have gotten this far without each other. There's just absolutely no way. So I think what you do, what we're talking about, is reflecting on that more and honoring that more, and really putting the haters aside, because we've had a bunch of people try to come in and break that partnership up.
Yeah.
And staying true to all of that. Because people can get in your ear too. It makes it really hard. So you got to put up your barriers and your tolerance level and really, fight for the other person.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you guys defined early on each other's zone of genius and knew who was doing what. And that's probably part of why you were able to grow as you did, right? And really play off of that and that unwavering conviction that, hey, we've got this. We know it's going to work out. Probably didn't know how all the time, but you knew it was going to happen, right? And yeah, like as soon as you see and feel success, there's always going to be someone, right, who wants to take it from you or, probably take credit or rip the carpet from underneath your feet. And then there's the jealousy side of things. And, it's amazing what true colors are shown as soon as something starts to grow and become big and beautiful and worth quite a lot, right? I believe too, and I think we've had in past conversations, and correct me if I'm wrong, you also talking about the challenge that you faced in getting funding, in dealing with men, mostly all men, in your space, and how you have had to stand strong and true to your values, but also like learn to speak up and really take control and ownership of what you knew. So I'd love for you to speak to that too, because we have a ton of listeners who are also in fields dominated by men and have had to really overcome a lot of challenges. And then there's some who like haven't really navigated how yet or found their voice. So
I think the thing that happens is we try to minimize our success a lot instead of putting it out there, just as females in general, right? We never have really voiced up, right? My grandmother had 8 kids, right? And she ran that household. She dressed to the nines every day. They never complained. So I think we're getting to that piece where, we can complain about it, but then it's doing action about it, right? So we love the term like mansplaining. I feel like I have to like women-splain a lot of that. Like, why I get to be at that table. So I'll give you like a peek behind the curtain. I was at a conference and there were 50 executives there, me being there included, like an invitation, right? I'm there. I'm sitting by the pool. I'm dangling my feet in the pool, just kind of taking a second. I had my little journal by me. And I was like, wow, like you're here with the big dogs, right? And I was like, no, you are a big dog because you're here, right? So it's just that self-talk where as women growing up as girls, like my parents never told me, be careful, don't do that. Like, so I think that I owe a lot of my success to how I was raised, where it was, I was never really told that, like, go jump off that cliff as high as it is, right? Go take that chance knowing that I had something to fall back on. I was never like, I guess taught risk, but like I took the risks, right? Being a cheerleader and a gymnast, like throw me up as high as you can, right? Like I know somebody will catch me. So it's just, don't minimize it. And you got to also get behind other females. It's not a jealousy thing. It's just like, I've had the carpet ripped out from me with other females. And I was like, that hurt. Like, stop it. You know, we're all in this together, whether you're a man or a woman. We all bring so many different things to the table. But a lot of these conversations where they're just like under their breath, they'll say something like, one was an EMR company that shall go unnamed, where he's like, oh no, we're not going to integrate with you. And in the next breath, he's like, oh, but I do love investing in female entrepreneurs. And I was like, I am not here for your money. I'm here because my company is great and that we need this for the industry. Like, that's icky, you know? So, but it's just knowing that that's him and that's his complex, not yours. You can just shove it to the side. And then you'll have that conversation like, oh yeah, I was treated the same way. So it's just, it's the egos that you have to put aside. It's getting yourself in the conversation, you know, in the, like you're in the same kind of industry, right? It's the first 30 seconds of the conversation. You got to come out swinging. You can't lean back in those conversations. Another fun story along the way, I was 4 months postpartum. I was at a conference. And I was still pumping, and I literally had my pump on, and I was, not only did I sell a deal, like close an account, but I also was having this big conversation with a potential partner, like a big partner. And I was like, if you only knew what I was doing right now, while looking you straight in the eye and having a cohesive conversation, like we are powerhouses. Like, it's just unbelievable what we can do. But we minimize it way too much, and we don't celebrate our successes because we're trying to live up to this ideal. It's just not, it's not real. So that would be my advice, is just stop minimizing it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's so powerful, honestly. And I always used to say to myself too, like, brave it till you make it, you know, and just go out there.
And let it make it till you make it.
Change the language, right? And even when you're saying, like, what you say to yourself matters. It's because when people say fake it till you make it, just didn't feel aligned to me, because I never wanted to be that person who was seeming to be fake, or I didn't know, you know, but I was like, okay, I can be brave, right? I can be brave, I can be strong, because I had to learn early on, and probably just as you did, being in a world where not only was everybody a man, everyone was at least a decade or two older than me, right? And so I had to show authority, I had to show conviction, and to me, it was like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm going to step up, I'm going to stand strong, and hopefully have some kind of presence where all of their assumptions they'll be embarrassed of them, right? Where I hated that feeling of like, oh, that's cute, or that must, you know, it was like nails on a chalkboard, you know? So I always tried to make that point of like, oh, no, there's nothing cute about this, right? In what we were doing. And so I think that's huge. And I hear women downplaying themselves or what they've accomplished just too much. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to downplay. And look, like what I have learned too is that you celebrating your successes and talking about what you've accomplished and how far you've come and how you've grown a tech company, right? It gives other women permission to do it too. right? And I think that's what we forget is that us cheerleading ourselves is helping cheerlead other women by permission to see that it's okay. Like they're looking at you and saying, good for her. That's amazing. That's awesome. But I think internally, sometimes we question it and think like, oh, is someone going to think I'm full of myself or a narcissist or braggy? It's like, no, if you really look inside and say, anytime you see another woman celebrating her victory, we always say that's fucking awesome, right? Or for me, it's like, shit, I got to get it together. I want to do that too, right? Like it's super motivating and empowering for me to see that or to see what's possible. Like, because we do have these limiting beliefs, I think. And sometimes they're limiting just because we haven't seen it done. And to see it done opens up the world of possibility and what we're capable of achieving. But sometimes we just need someone else to show us the way. And so I really love that you're doing that. And my hope is that it will become more normal, right? Because to me, and I love a world and people and surrounding myself with other women who like aren't just talking about it, they're doing it, right? They're showing through action, they're making that change because how else are we going to do it, right? How else are we going to continue to thrive and rise above and not be the quote unquote stigma, right? Of like the catty women talking in a circle, like that's what I'm hoping hopefully disintegrates over time and we can continue to do this. And there's one thing that you had said earlier, it's lonely to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, like it is so lonely. And I have struggled with that quite a lot over the years. And it's not that I was like isolated and I didn't have any friends, but it's isolating from the perspective of no one, it feels like no one else gets it, Yeah. I have throughout journeys of my life, like most of my friends didn't own a business. I caught a ton of flack for the hours that I worked and what I did, and my family, like, oh my goodness, and even from the industry, because I did something so different in the industry altogether, right? And so being lonely there and not having mentors and so I just always felt like, am I insane? Like, am I insane? I have nobody to talk to. Nobody understands me. And in that vein, and I always had this conviction, and it sounds like you did too, that like, no matter what, like, this is my vision, I'm getting after it. And I don't really care what anybody's, I had like tunnel vision, right? But you go through these periods of time where you're kind of like, oh, I have no friends. Woe is me. I'm so sad. I'm so lonely. Who do I talk to? Yeah. And even my husband, bless his heart, I love him so much. Like he doesn't get it. Like, and his feedback sometimes is just like straight up annoying, like if we're going to call a spade, and it's like, oh, I just want to strangle you. And so so when I lose my mojo from time to time and, feeling like, oh, well, I'm not even creative. I don't even know what to talk about or say or do. And like, sometimes it's just a slog. Like even if you love what you're doing, like there are those days where you're like, can I retire? And so I would just love to know, and this is probably, selfishly, but I'm sure other people will appreciate to hear it too, because I just went through this in December, and I've actually been sick for 22 days now. Like I'm finally feeling better. So it was like hurting the whole mojo thing, right? And getting that back and getting the energy back. Like, what do you do to stay motivated? Like, what do you do to make sure that you don't fall too far down in the cracks sometimes when stuff gets really hard?
Yeah, I laugh along the way there because it's like all the things that I felt like. I loved your roller coaster there. And I don't know if you're a Ted Lasso fan, but one of my, like the funniest things, he's like, the guy's like talking about something and Ted is like, wow, man, that was, some roller coaster you took on me. I'm glad I was tall enough to get on that ride with you. Like it's yeah, like that's so funny to me. But just like the family thing, being a woman, being a provider, being those things, like you get that external community that this is the way that a woman's life is supposed to be. And we get to break those molds. And these molds have been broken since the beginning of time when like women got to rule Egypt and right, all of these things. It's been done before, but we don't really hear again of those successes. We're just bombarded by the man's world successes. And so that it is tough too. I laugh too because my husband too will do the same thing where, bless his heart, he just doesn't know what I need. And I'm like, I just need a hug. Like,
I know.
I don't need any explanation or anything, but it has been, I find a lot of empowerment in like specific books. 3 come to mind really quickly.
I'd love to hear.
Changed my life. One is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. So I read that book and I instantly hired an executive assistant who has changed my life. Then another one is 10X is easier than 2X. And then their other one is The Gap and the Gain. So I've always been a positive person. Now that I have a word for it, because now you can see like how your team goes in to the gap and you have to stay in the gain, and just again, celebrating those little wins along the way. Another group that has been incredible for me is a little forum group where we come in and share monthly of rate your personal family business. How is it going? Right. And you get into, another book that talks about this is Business Outside by Bart Foster, is just in human nature. We stay in this like bell curve he talks about where it's like, hi, how are you? How's the family? What are you doing these days? Like, it's just so superficial bullshit where we don't get into that 5% of how really is it going, right? Like, how are you? Right. And letting someone really offload some of that. And so that's what this community has allowed me to do, where you get into those deeper things that you can't talk about with your family. And it's nice because we bring a dynamic where a lot of those groups were male dominated, right? And so having a female perspective where we talk about marriage, we talk about kids, we talk about how they talk to their wife or what I would want to hear or what they would want to hear, right?
Yeah.
And so it brings so much perspective to it if you give yourself the time to do it. And I think we're so rushed on to the next thing. So I was fortunate enough to find yoga in like 2010, 2011, which just allows me to work in instead of work out, but it's both because I'm like, the better, the sweatier, like, it's just all kind of come together. So really just working on mindfulness has been a big piece to this. But now like The Gap and the Gain, that book has really helped me color it a little bit more in perspective from those around me. So again, like employing all the people that I do that depend on me, like that gets tough, right? You got to walk in all bubbly and bushy-eyed tailed, or that team feels that energy too. So you got to figure out what fills your cup. If it's a cup of tea, if it's, writing down before you even start for the day and your like journal that you're taking notes, then like a win, we don't do that enough for ourselves. So that would just be little things that I've done.
No, I love that. That's huge. And in those 3 books, I can say they're incredible. Huge. And they're truly game changing if you follow the principles in them. And it's funny, they all go hand in hand in a weird way, even though, but I actually think Buy Back Your Time, he references 10X in the book. I think he does have a couple references to it, and they really do all help. And my best friend right now is actually reading The Gap and the Gain, and she's talking about how helpful it is. Because I was like, you have to read this. she's in this massive growth phase with her company, and they just had to rip apart their entire inventory system and rebuild new technology. And her team is like, any massive change like that, right? It's a nightmare. And she's like on the verge of like every other day breakdown. She's like, I don't know, we're gonna hang on any longer. Just working around the clock. And so she's going through that, and she's like, wow, helpful, right? And so it really does. And so I have found that too. I actually go through a couple books a month it helps, right? It helps keep your frequency high when you feel like the world is just like stacked against you, or you're like maneuvering like landmines all the time, and to hear people who are brilliant and have done it before and made it happen, or to just like pull from that energy sometimes is huge. And I'm an EO, and we have a forum, and it sounds like we do something very similar. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. The 5%, right? And I think that's part of what I love so much about EO is before I joined, I was part of WPO and like all these women's groups, right? And I didn't
need the dynamic.
realized, how much I really valued having men in that group. Like their perspective is so valuable and so helpful that I was actually hurting myself by not having men in my forum, in my group, and having that perspective. And so that was like a big eye opener to me as I was like, holy shit, like this is amazing. And even to your point of hearing, because we talk about marriage and all the other, like having their viewpoint on that is so helpful, because how easy is it to like get stuck in your own tunnel vision, right? And I need something, because I'm in a world of where everybody just says yes to me all the time, right? Very rarely does someone call me out on my bullshit. Like, I need that. I love when someone challenges me or like stretches my rubber band a little bit to kind of think outside of my ways. And I'm very, opinionated and strong-willed. And so sometimes a little stubborn, and it's probably how I got this far without, going up in flames. And so, but to that end, I need someone with an equally strong personality to kind of say, hey, like, what the hell are you doing? Why can't you see it this way, or have you considered? And so, I love that you said that, because it is, I found it so challenging and helpful because of that. And we don't always make the time for it, because that's a time commitment, right? You're committing a day, basically a month to this group, to yourself. And we say, and you probably hear this often, like, I'm too busy for that. I can't join, or I don't have the time. And it's like,
you cannot not do this. Like, it's just like
you
and everyone around you is so much better off because you did that.
Yes. It is like the lifeline to your business. And it's so easy, right? To say like, oh, I'm too busy. And that's where I always like pause and say like, wait a minute, like this, how can I make this a priority? And making sure that I'm doing that, because it's easy for us to discount like investing in ourselves and investing in the things that will make everything better. Because it's also scary, and I don't know if you ever get like intimidated by this. And I always do. Like, I am such a cheap ship, like, and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on coaches and other advisors in my career, but I was late to the game. As I say that, like I was, and if I would have done it sooner, my goodness, like who knows where it'd be, but it took me so long. Once I did, it was like, okay, that's it. Like there's no one else that I can bet on other than me. Right. And I'm the one telling the story. And so I've tried to practice, like if I'm bitching about something, I'm the only one that can fix it. So who's going to help? Right. And kind of taking that stance too.
And I think too, the words that we use, if we bring it back, so like we get to do this, we don't have to do this. No one's forcing you to do this, right? I love like, Billie Jean King's like pressure is a privilege. Like I have it like right up on for like my sticky notes. So it's, and another quote that I love living by is, you can wake up every day and build your own dreams, or you can wake up every day and build somebody else's.
That's
so
right.
Where do you want to, where do you want to live? We're only on this earth for a certain amount of time. One thing that comes up too is they're like, oh my God, like how do you do it all? And it's just about, I have that ability to just attention ability, I guess I'm gonna put a word to it, on just focus. When I'm at home, I try to, be fully present with my kids and not think about shooting this podcast or what's going on or leaving tomorrow to go away again. Like just really being present in every moment when you're talking to a staff member, making sure all your stuff is down so you're like eye to eye with that person, because they can feel that. Even if you're multitasking, like people can tell your brain is multitasking even though you're physically here. So it's practicing those things, because we're all on this for connection. That's what makes us human, right? And that's what this has enabled me to do is connect with more than just that one patient in an exam room. Like I'm so grateful for that phone call from Jen, and will always be I always can reflect just on that single moment. I think I was really pregnant at the time where I was like, yeah, let's go. Like this sounds like the perfect time to do this. I've had 2 kids in building this company. And if we kind of look back to the Inc. 5000 being named number 41, we got to go to the Inc. 5000 conference, which was such a different conference. Like you just walked into that room and you could just, everybody just was like, how, like, you just know how freaking hard it was to get there, and you didn't have to justify it to anybody in that room. So it was just this, that if I took anything away from it, it was just that empowerment of like, you didn't have to explain to anybody how you got there, because they all have been, you know, pedaling as fast as they can too. It was just a moment to really celebrate together and not have to explain it. But there was one, Jen and I were sitting at a lunch and they're like, oh, well, you guys do know like the top 100 companies are all funded. And Jen and I over there were like, ha, ha, ha. Like, no, we're not. Like we did a friends and family round, right?
Yeah.
To get us here. And it was just, we had a great idea. We found a great team to surround it, and we didn't give up. Like there were so many opportunities for us to give up. That it was like, when I reflected too on it, it was, you know, thanking all the people that, yes, supported us, but also thanking the people that didn't.
Yeah, I love that. That's hysterical.
But we were just over there, and like we would tell them we were number 41, and they're like, oh, you guys, like they minimized it. Oh, you guys must be funded. You must be doing this. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. But it was it was like cool. Reflecting too. That was such a cool environment.
Awesome.
Not surrounded by people like that enough. That are doing it and that know just how hard it is. You know, like your husband and your best friend and stuff like that. They don't get it, and nor could they, right? Unless they were living it too. So they're just seeing your happy posts on Instagram or whatever. They don't realize you're like crying behind the scenes. You're like,
I know. You didn't see the ugly moment. So
if I don't laugh right now, I will cry. Like someone made me laugh.
Like we say that all the time. Like I can't tell you the number of times where like I'm only laughing right now because I don't know what else to do. A nervous breakdown isn't an option. What a validating moment. I love that. And you know what it is? It's cool like to just know that like you can look at somebody else and without speaking, there's that level of understanding. Yeah. Because it is super rare. And I think it's important to note too for everybody listening as you're talking and you are in the room, right? That most people will never get to be in. So I was also kind of like sitting back, like letting me live in your shoes for a little bit. But you did it while having two humans, right? And it's not, and your husband's working and you're doing all of the things. And so you still went ahead full throttle because you could, and you could handle all the things instead of saying, well, when I'm done with, right? When my kids are older or when I'll do this. Like, I love that you didn't allow your circumstance to make an excuse for postponing. But you did the very thing that you were meant to do, and you're still a super badass, amazing mom who's present for their kids. And I think that sometimes can be left unspoken about. And there's so many women that I talk to all the time, especially in the financial planning business, that I hear that, well, I have mom guilt. Right? I didn't do this. And really it's like, well, no, I think you're just copping out on yourself a little bit, right? Because article after article talks about how children thrive from moms who work or own a business because you're showing them the way. You don't have to, you get to show them what's possible. And the fact that you're doing that, I think is like just the coolest, most beautiful thing, because and like you had growing up, you had mentors, your parents, right? They taught you entrepreneurship and they probably planted the seed of having that taste, right?
All their fault.
Like, you're not working for anybody, right? And so I would be fired in 5 seconds if I were in a, but like you're now showing them that, right? And I think that's super cool, like this generational entrepreneurial spirit where they can choose that path, but at least they get to see it firsthand, the cool journey of that. And I'm sure they've seen some of your lows, and that's just as beautiful, right? To know that that life and success always is hand in hand with adversity and failure and struggle, and that you can't have it without. And again, I think everybody just sees the highlight reels and all of the beautiful and incredible things that you've accomplished, but they haven't seen that crap behind the scenes and your sleepless nights. And
I think too, the mom guilt, Nicole, I think let's even rename it now. It's like mom projection.
Right? Good. Yeah, totally.
So like I have an amazing mentor. She traveled a lot, right? And she said, her name is Dr. Millicent Knight. And she's like, I wouldn't be the best mom if I wasn't living my story, right? And it is your story, and your kids get to live theirs, and your husband gets to live theirs, right? And I wouldn't be a great mom if I wasn't doing this. I would be like, what if, right? That would just eat at me. And there's women that thrive being stay-at-home moms, and like, you do the job of like, I can't do that job, right? Like, I wouldn't be great at that. So it's just understanding and owning what your unique ability is. And again, not objectifying it or not minifying it, and not projecting that on somebody else. That's just me, right? Because I get that a lot. They're like, well, don't you have 2 kids? And don't you have this, right? And I was like, yeah. So like the men do it.
Yeah. Right.
So it's fine. Yeah, a lot has gone on Josh, but he's thriving in that as well, right? And so I think it's honoring that more than judging it. There's a lot of projection there, and I'm like, there is. Like, you gotta put this like shield up sometimes, and that's okay. And you can just say that's okay, like, and move on to somebody else in the room.
Redirect the energy, it's wild. There's just so many, I don't know if it's a shamer or a should, right? Like shoulding on people all of the time. And like a kinder world would just be to make zero assumptions. And, if you have an opinion of which is just that, keep it to yourself, right? Don't project your problems on me. So, I mean, even the number of times, it's so ironic, like the number of times I've been shamed for not having kids, right? Is unbelievable.
And those are that's like societal projection, right?
Oh, yeah. And from women, it's all been women, right? To the point where I've had to stop and say, hey, you know what? I don't think this is relevant right now. Like, this has nothing to do with our conversation, and I appreciate your concern for me. But
the other thing too is you just have to realize how bad people are at conversation, right? So like if you look back, you're like, you were dating somebody. So when are you going to get serious? When are you going to get engaged? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? When are you going to have you pop out a baby? Yeah. When are you going to have the other one? And it's like, I literally just got out of the hospital like yesterday, bro. Like, whoa, so I think that we just are really bad at conversation. So when you also, I think, arming yourself with good questions, like when Jen and I go into a room, like we have so much fun because we can just throw people off, which is fun, like just getting people out of their comfort zone to just not talk about. We can't be in these conversations for much longer if we don't have fun in them, right? Of the just,
totally.
Where are you from? Like, let's...
And I feel like to a big degree, like people have forgotten how to communicate. And and I do give a lot of people grace. Like I feel like sometimes people just like panic speak, right? Like they panic, they don't know what to say. So they say something super awkward and uncomfortable, maybe for both of you, but you go with it anyway. And it's definitely a thing. And communication has gotten so hard, and listening has gotten so hard. And I'm extremely introverted actually. And so for me, it's hard in general. And so I've read the book, Captivate. I don't know if you've read anything, Vanessa Van Edwards. And she talks about communication, but a cool part of her book, I actually listened to audio and then I bought the physical book because she talks about conversation starters and things that you can actually talk about in those rooms where everybody feels awkward. You don't want to say something stupid or put your foot in your mouth, and so it's really the power of having and navigating conversations. But importantly, in what she talked about is like, can you actually just listen, right? Listen to what they're saying and viewing their body language. It'll give you so many more meaningful questions to ask, right? Yeah. So,
and like two things that come to mind is like when you find out like if somebody just gets married, right? And just one thing I'll ask them is like, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. What was your favorite part of the day? Right?
I love that. Yeah.
And so it's not like, oh, when are you gonna have kids? And then another one too, like we're kind of in this scene right now too, where like your friends are maybe getting divorced, right? Which is it's an interesting time. And it's not like, oh, like we all like when someone said that, just like this instant like, oh, like my face is just, but it's like celebrate it. Like maybe it has it like, but again, read the body language. Like, are they upset about it? Are they super ecstatic that they like it was the best decision they've ever made? So just like read the room.
No,
So that's like your emotional intelligence, right? And I think we're getting this a hit word right now. But
and there's like a lot on that now too. Yeah, absolutely. And read into that. And hey, if you know you need help with it, like seek a book, seek help, because it will help you in business too, right? Like it will help you so much. And that's probably why the two of you, can go, what word am I looking for? I don't even know. I was going to say like the gangbusters. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Now it just came out awkward because it couldn't find my words. Speaking of awkward, right? But yeah, no, that's great. And I like that you guys can play off of each other in a room too, right? And I do that a lot with Sarah and a couple of my other friends who are businesses because they are extroverted, especially my best friend. Like she can have a conversation with anybody. And it's so nice because then I have like training wheels with me, right? Like I can't have someone be there and start and when somebody talks to me, I can totally engage all day long, but it's the getting started. It's so scary. But thank you so much for everything that you shared today. I appreciate it. And especially your time in between your insane travel schedule this month. And before we end, is there anything that you want to share with the listeners as a final message or something to share that you think would be meaningful for them to hear, especially with the more mature, I would say, stage that you are in your business?
Yeah, just don't minimize yourself. Like give yourself the credit because nobody else is going to give you credit if you don't give yourself credit for it. And it's not like the gold stars and all of that, like trophy generation or at all, but it's just that internal will to keep going and knowing some days are going to be better than others, but it's just that momentum factor. Just keep believing in yourself and other people will do the same and find your tribe. Just if that's not your jam, like it doesn't have to be your jam, like just move it, So yeah, just energy, staying as positive as you can, and giving yourself that mental space to unpack like what comes off. What was handed down from my parents to me. Some of it was magnificent. Some of it wasn't. And that's just generational trauma, right? So breaking some of those cycles is critical to keep going as well and recognize that. So I think
I love that.
That is it. But I love the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And we will have the links to connect with Brianna in the show notes, as well as those books she mentioned, because if you haven't read them yet, I think you should. They are so, here, there you go, shooting on you, but do it anyway. They're great. But until next time, my powerhouses, continue to be courageous.